Hi there, we're about to start, be about another minute or so. Just wanted to get things set up. For some reason, our picture looks a little bit fuzzy. Let me know if that's a problem, if it looks terrible on your end. It's an internet connection thing. I don't know what's going on today. I am not going to optimize anything, though, because that will send us into a tailspin. And we're almost there. I'm going to go ahead and say hello. The chat room is on the right-hand side. If you want to say hello, let me know that you're here. That'd be awesome. The other thing is, if you're watching on your phone, if you're watching with the YouTube app, the way you get to the chat is down at the bottom of the screen. There's a thing that says top chat or live chat. What you want to do is click on that, and that will open up your chat screen. Now let me make sure that we are running. Says it's live. Oh, there we go. And I'll open this up just to be sure. Yep, down at the bottom it says top chat for mine. And then once you have that top chat thing, there's a down arrow. If you click on that, you can click on live chat and it will open up all the chat room messages. I see we have 3. We have 4 here. All right. So we might as well get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this free webinar. This is going to be completely informal because, frankly, this only came about because people were asking questions about this idea that I had. It was based on the Instagram pods thing that is, if you're in social media, you know that's a really popular concept right now. And then I thought, well, why is it just applying to Instagram? And why can't we use this for our advantage in social media and presenting our content we're putting out there? That's how this happened. And I threw this together 2 days ago. So if things are a little bit rocky or a little bit rough, that's why. The other thing is, if you have suggestions, if you have ideas you want to share, type them in here or send me an email. In fact, I'll go to that contact me page first and foremost here. That way you can kind of look at that. And I need to open it up. Here's my contact page. And I'll close that. And I will open up contact here. So there you go. There's my contact information. Anyone that knows me knows I'm on a ton of different shows, and I have 60 different Twitter accounts and all sorts of things going. With these contact things, these are the ones that go directly to me. So on Twitter, you can catch me at @r_Southgate, Instagram under Rob Southgate. Facebook, you can look under Southgate Media Group. Pod People is, the reason I put that on there is that is actually a private group. If you want to be a part of it, you got to put in a request. That group is for people that are trying to put these pods together and trying to connect. Fiverr, we'll get to that. Hey, Chris Mao, you're here. Awesome. The website, southgatemediagroup.com, and there is a slash, boy, I have not made one that says SMG webinars, but by tomorrow there will be. There's a couple of different ones in there. If you use the link that you have now, it takes you to that page that will be just SMG webinars. iTunes, I put down New Media Lab because people that are watching this are probably interested in the business aspect of things. On that show, I interview people not just in podcasting, but in all sorts of new media. And we talk about things like tagging and social media and how to get your content out there. So that's a show that you might be interested in. And then you can always send me an email directly at southgatemediagroup@gmail.com. All right, Chris, since you're the one saying hi, I want to ask you first and foremost, how does it sound? How does it look? Is it all right? And I know I'm going to get some kind of snide answer back, but that's okay because I expect it. Let me see. I've got to open this, and I'm going to stop sharing that screen. There we go. I'm back. Okay. So now I'm going to set up my first slide. Nope, I don't want a new slide. That's all right. So professional, huh? So the very first thing we're going to talk about is, watch this. Watch this. What is a social pod? So here's the idea. Good, Chris. Thank you. That helps, because on my end, my YouTube looks really choppy and awful. What can I do? You know, it's something's up. You can't get the chat from the SMG link. You have to go to YouTube itself. Good tip. This is something else we're working out. I was reading about webinars online, and somebody suggested using a webinar chat app. I couldn't figure out why, but I think we just found out why. I think that it's easier. Although I don't know if that works on your phones and stuff. So we'll figure that one out for future webinars. Okay, so here's the deal. What a social media pod is oh, I got to keep my chat room open. I don't need to look at my picture there. What a social media pod is basically you want to get a grouping of people that are targeting a similar audience, people that are going after a same demographic. Those are two different things, and we'll talk about that. Or a same subject matter, three different things. And you want to pair up, and basically you want to keep these pods fairly small. I'll explain why in a second. So the maximum size you want to go with, in my opinion, is maybe 15 people. I would suggest keeping it maybe closer to 10. We're in a pod right now that has 12, and not everybody is really active yet, so it's pretty manageable. But the reason you want to keep it small, I know it seems like, oh my gosh, I want to put everybody I know, I want to put every podcaster in our network on there. You don't, because I know it's not filling the full screen. If I do that, I can't read the chat. I'm going to have to set up 2 screens in order to fix that, Chris, but we'll get there. Not today. So basically, when you post something, what a social media pod is when you post something, you go to Twitter, you put a tweet out that says, I've got a new blog post, let's say. When you do that, you basically have a pod that you alert. You have a direct message. Now, the way we're doing it is through Messenger on Facebook. I know some people do it through email. Some people do it through texting, or through even like a Facebook group. I'm in a couple of groups that do it that way. Okay. What you do is you go on and you say, I have posted a post about my new blog from @Southgate on Twitter. Make sure you have all that information, so it's super easy for people. They open up their Twitter, they search for you, they hit like, and they tweet. And I'll get into those details even further along in this process. I've got a slide for it. It's awesome. I want to be able to use these slides. So when they do that, you got now, let's say 10 people. Let's make it easy. I'm like the guy in Willy Wonka. I can't do 12. We've got 10 people other than yourself in a pod, so 11 people. And you do that, and instantly 10 people, they get this, and and they start tweeting out. They start liking it and quote tweeting or retweeting, and you get all this activity on your tweet. That's what a social media pod is. It can be used in different ways. It can be used for social media exclusively, Twitter, Instagram, which are the ones we're going to focus on, Facebook. If you're, let's say you're a podcaster, you put out a new episode, it can be used for everyone to go, oh, new episode went out. I go to iTunes and I'm going to give it a thumbs up. Something like that. So it shows activity. That's what this is. I know you think, well, that seems like a lot of work to get my message out there. It's really not. If you look at the activity, the amount of activity that you get, let's say we'll go with podcasting. We put out a new podcast. I'll go in there and I'll notice nobody's putting a thumbs up, even though I'll get messages. People say they liked it. I get people all the time that start quoting things they liked in the show, but they never put a thumbs up. They never made a comment. They never did a review. Those reviews, those comments, those thumbs up you do, that's what triggers the algorithms in all these things, whether it's Instagram or iTunes or Google Hangout or whatever it is. Those are the things that trigger the algorithms that push you higher. So you're on Twitter and you're looking through your Twitter stuff, and you know how you'll read a couple of lines and then it'll have some other people like suggested posts you might like. The reason those are showing up is because people are liking those. They're starting to not even trend. They're just getting enough of the right kind of activity. What that activity is liking and comments. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next slide. Boom. Or not boom. You can do the sound effects at home if you want. Slide 2. This is like the smoothest thing ever, right? Okay, there we go. How to set up a pod. So I already touched on this idea. What you want to do is you want to, first of all, decide what format you're going to go with. Like I use Instagram and I use Twitter, okay? And I actually use all of them, but those are the two that I'm focusing on for these pods. Facebook is not one I'm focusing on because, frankly, it's not what the focus of what I'm doing is right now. Chris, I could hear you say boom. I see the boom on there. So really, I'm focusing on Instagram and Twitter. You have to decide, what is it I'm trying to do with it? If you're a blogger and you're like, well, you know, it's really just want people to engage with my my WordPress page. Okay, if that's how you're putting your message out, forget this other social media. That is what you're going to focus on here. That is what you're going to tell people to do. You don't want to tell them in your pod 40 different places, and you don't want to find people for your pod that are scattered to the winds. I don't have any YouTubers necessarily in mind because I'm not promoting my YouTube stuff. I'll get to that too. So you want to find people with similar subjects, similar targets, or peers. So similar subjects. Let's say you do a, Chris owns the Blue Box Cafe. Product placement, hold on. Look how good I am at this. Fingers covering it, missing fingers showing off. Chris owns the Blue Box Cafe. So his similar subject is going to be, obviously, coffee. It's going to be restaurants. It's going to be Doctor Who. In fact, I would probably focus on Doctor Who and coffee if I was him. Those would be the subjects I would say, these are the people I'm looking for, people that are in those two realms. Now, Chris is in a unique situation because we do a lot of live podcasting out of the Blue Box, draws a lot of attention to the Blue Box. So he might want to even bring in some podcasters that have a following that would match what he has. So like having me, it makes a lot of sense to have him in my pod, for him and for me. Okay? It doesn't matter the size of that person's, yeah, I know you do, Chris. It doesn't matter. I hope you guys couldn't see that I had on pajama pants. It doesn't matter the size of their social media reach. If they have a big one, great. If they only have a few people, that's fine too, because it's what you're doing to the algorithm that's going to affect things. And everybody is going to benefit. If Chris has, 10,000 followers and he retweets to everybody, well, yeah, that's to our advantage. And it's going to reach 10,000 more than it would have otherwise. But if he has us tweeted out, and let's say I only have 25 people, and I tweet that out, even though he's not going to have the reach, it's going to affect the algorithm in Twitter, in Instagram, even in Facebook. All that engagement helps keep things in the eye of your audience. And if you share a similar audience, it's going to be to your benefit. Okay, so I'm going back to my slide. Oh, we've got similar subject. In Chris's case, Doctor Who and coffee. In my case, I put geek culture. I look for people that have podcasts. I look for people that are networks. If you look at the first pod that I'm in with Chris and with Phil and with some of these other people, it is kind of a mishmash of different subjects, but really, overall, it's the geek culture subject that I'm going for. I'm trying to reach that person and the active content creator entrepreneur. That is really who I'm after. That's who you are, which is why we're on this. Similar target. So we talked about subject, but similar target is different. Uh, Here's an example. We have a Agents of Shield podcast. It talks all about like Marvel and Marvel Cinematic Universe and the TV show stuff. So the subject, I can find other Marvel people, but I want a similar target. My target is a certain demographic. It may be people in their 20s. It may be guys that love Marvel gaming, or it may be, which is definitely a target that we might want to hit. It may be toy collectors. Even though our show's not about toys, I know they're going to like what we do. So I'm looking for people that have either influence or that share that target. Okay. The final one is peers. So the first pod I'm in, it's really peers. It's people I know, people I like, people I trust, and I like the content they use. I can see an advantage to us all sharing information. Now, does that mean they have to be peers? No. There's somebody in my pod that I'm not real familiar with. I loosely know them. We don't even really share subject, but we definitely share target. So they don't have to be any of these three, but that's who I would look at. I would look at trying to target one of the three, or if you can, get all three. That's always awesome. Before I go on, there is a group. Oh man, I'm going to forget the name right now. I should have taken notes. It's called like the Rainbow Collective or something like that. It's a group of female bloggers out of California, and I'll put it in the notes afterwards, but it's a group of these female bloggers that what they do is they'll put out a blog post, and if one of them goes viral, or not even viral, they try to make it go viral. One of them puts out a blog post. Let's say all 10 of them put out a blog post in the same day, and they do this same kind of pod thing where they promote each other. Okay. But if one of them gets a lot of attention, let's say it does triple the amount of attention of the other ones then will do extra work as a pod to lift that one up, to try to push it even further, because what it's going to do is it's going to add to that audience. That makes sense? I hope it did, because that's exactly what using a pod can be. And it's actually worked to their advantage in a big way. They're all getting a lot more press. They're all getting a lot more attention. People don't know they are a pod. You don't want to say like, we're the X pod, and this is what we do. They have grown to the point that they're using that name. They're saying we are the Rainbow, whatever, Rainbow Connection pod we'll go with. That's not it, but they're going with some kind of name to brand even that. But you don't want to do that until you're making a foothold, because what it does then is your brand, your pod is now an influencer in and of itself. And that's really what we're all working for. We want to be influencers. If you're not, learn about it, because it is what you're working for. Okay, let's see. Kenneth wrote on here, definitely going to rewatch later. Yeah, Ken, it's totally worth it. I'm not sure if you're going to cover this point, but here's a slight dilemma I have. Since I don't have content out yet, I find myself not feeling adequate enough to part with those in a pod. Hey, Kenneth, I totally have an answer, and we're totally going to cover that in this. So, yes, I am going to get there. Okay, I'm going to go to the next slide. This is janky how I'm doing it. And guys, please, as things come up, ask questions, because you got me. That's what I'm here for. I want to answer as many as I can. You can also send me an email if you want. The email is southgatemediagroup@gmail.com. That goes directly to me. Okay. So you can always do that, or you can tweet me at rsouthgate, or you can find me on Instagram at robsouthgate. And any of those, if you comment, you like things, you have questions, send them there. It doesn't have to be during the seminar. I think what we're going to do for this webinar, sorry, I said the wrong term. I think what we're going to do is we're going to leave this up for a week, and then I'm going to pull it down. That way I can kind of get questions and figure out what the next step is. And maybe I'll do another one in a few weeks and answer more things and try to make it a little bit smoother. Maybe so I don't have that janky changeover. Okay, so next slide, if I can get it. There we go. And there we go. Okay. Social media basics. So I'm going to cover this really fast. This is where you want to take notes, or you probably want to go back and you want to take notes at that point or save this, because this is one of those things that I know a lot of us go like, oh, yeah, I know totally how all this works, but we don't. I see mistakes constantly. I did a seminar at Gen Con for podcasters. In fact, we may have people on here that were at that. And one of the days, all we did was social media. And what was crazy is I thought I was going to talk about kind of what we're talking about today, like really like kind of getting into the advanced stuff. And what ended up happening was I spent a half hour talking about what I consider the real basics. So let's cover a couple here. First of all, what is each platform for? Instagram, you should know already, is pictures. You want to look at it as telling your story on Instagram. The people that use it strictly for marketing, you can smell it a mile away. So when I use Instagram, I do things like we did live at the Blue Box last night. Somebody took a picture of Jim and I up there doing the show. I took that, I sent out an Instagram saying, wow, it was such an honor to be on it. It's so awesome. And then it was telling that behind the scenes kind of thing. It wasn't like, follow us on Live at the Blue Box. You can do some of that, but a lot of what Instagram is for is that little bit more personal thing, okay? I've got another slide that's going to show you how to make a really solid Instagram post too, okay? And I know people are going to disagree with me. I don't care. I frankly have done so much research on it and watched how it works that I've seen what works and what doesn't. No matter what we think, yes, there are a million ways to do it, but this is kind of one of those surefires, especially if you're new to it. Do it, and you'll see that it works. Same thing with Twitter. I'll show you some of that. So what is each platform for? Instagram is for those personal things. Get pictures. Come up with ideas for Instagram. We'll cover more of that. Twitter is something where, yes, you kind of do that personal stuff, but it's more communicating a message. I share more like, hey, I've got a review coming out from this movie. Here's the link. I went to this today, like for my personal one, I'll be like, hey, we went to this today, and I'll put a link to that thing. Always use an image with your tweets if you can, because people will look at it. And if you can put video, little tiny video, people go crazy for that stuff. Facebook. I use Facebook more for groups, for communicating with fans. So like on the Nuff Said podcast, we have a Facebook page. We'll pose questions there. So it's not like, hey, here's what we did today. It'll be, did you guys watch Inhumans? What was the worst episode? Because they were all terrible. People will then like do a poll, or they'll put comments. That's really what Facebook is for. In fact, I'm going to give a shout out now. If you go to Facebook and you follow The Hollywood Outsider, Aaron does a beautiful job with Facebook. He uses it exactly as you should. So I highly recommend checking that out and looking at how is he communicating with his audience that I can communicate with my audience, okay? Snapchat Stories was the thing. It was really awesome when it came out. Right now, I'm not into it at all. I know that that's something for if your target is young, it's great. But you know what? Instagram Stories, I think, is better. Personal opinion. Pinterest. When you put out content, you want to share it to Pinterest. That's a whole other thing. I'm not going to go through the rest of these that you see on there. You get the idea. The big ones are Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and then Pinterest is its own animal. Okay? How to connect the platforms. So you may not know this, but when you set up your Instagram account, you can go into the settings. You can't put links in what you post, but you can, in your homepage there, put a link to whatever you want. So what I do is I have a link back to, I believe on my personal one, I have it to my LinkedIn account because I use that to try to get work. On the show ones, I put a link to the web page for the show. So Nuff Said has a web page where you can see content, and that link on Instagram goes there. You can also set up things like Twitter and Facebook in there so that when you post something to Instagram, you can choose, yes, share this to Twitter, yes, share this to Facebook. Now here's a tip. Don't do that every time. You want to have unique content on each thing. But I don't mean everything has to be unique. So when I did that post about the Blue Box last night, I had it pushed to Twitter, and then I posted it to Facebook rather than using the Instagram post. Just something I was doing. You will get more savvy about that as time goes on, but in the beginning, set up your Instagram, have it pushed to Twitter, and then once in a while tweet something different than what you're doing on Instagram. It'll be worth it. Okay. And I frankly do things on Instagram that I don't do on the other ones that's more personal. Stuff that like, hey, if we went for coffee and we're taking a picture at the coffee shop or whatever, I might not want that tweeting out from the Southgate media page. It's not relevant, but it is relevant to my followers on Instagram. I hope that made sense. Okay. Social media strategy. Yeah, you guys are going to hate this. So as you get more advanced, you want to do two things. You want to create a social media strategy, and you want to come up with a social media plan. These are two different animals. The strategy is, what are we going to do? What are we trying to achieve? And how are we going to do it? So I'm trying to push out this webinar. So I create a strategy for that. My strategy is I tweeted it out and I hit Facebook hard with it. My plan is different. My plan is actually where I go in and say, okay, which Facebook groups do I want to target with this? Who am I going to post to? What days of the week? How often? How often am I tweeting out? What am I tweeting out? Okay. So your strategy is, who am I trying to reach? How am I going to do it? What are the tools I'm going to use? And what is my goal? You get your goals in there. Your plan is, how am I doing it? What are the exact nuts and bolts of this? If you're a project manager, that's when the project manager steps in and says, okay, creative did their part. They told me what they want. Now I'm going to tell them exactly the order of things we're going to do. And then the final one is making a content calendar. This is something that every time I go to do it, I fall off the map with. It's a great tool. And there are admin people that are unbelievable at it. I'm not. But I do occasionally go back to it and create a loose content calendar. So what that is, the people that are admin that really are into this thing, they will create these content calendars that tell you every day what they're putting out there and exactly what it means and blah, 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 okay? Then there's the guy like me who will say, I know that my fans are geeks, so I have to have a calendar that says, I want to make sure 2 weeks before the new Star Wars game drops that I'm doing some Instagram posts about Star Wars games, and I'm tagging that. When Supernatural is coming back, I want to make sure I'm doing something right around the time it's coming back. There's a special event happening like Alien Day or our podcast marathon. Those all go on the content calendar. Instead of doing something specific, which is what some people do, and you might be that person, where it's like, here's what I'm doing every day, and I'm doing 3 tweets a day, and this is what it is. I'm doing things that are more like benchmarks. Another example is we do a show about American Horror Story. So you have people that have been consistently on this show for every season. Maybe you put their birthday down on your content calendar, and you make sure you send out something about that, like, hey, happy birthday to blank. That's on your content calendar. Okay. You do this with creative stuff. You do this if you're a business. You do this if you're an entrepreneur, which we all are. You find those things that you want to share with the audience that you have that's going to care about it. Your pod then has that they're sending out at the same time. Okay. I hope that all made sense. Let's see. We got a question here. This is Phil. Michael Copeland, content calendars are key. See, Michael's a marketer too. Michael, high five, virtual high five, high forward 3/4. How many times should you post a link to your newest blog podcast? How many days, how many times a day? Tough question, Phil. That's something that I get asked a lot. And there is no hard, fast rule. Every time I put out a number, I get slapped back by some podcaster that tells me I'm wrong, and they have their own way of doing it. So how many times? Here's what I would start with. podcast or blog or video, doesn't matter. The day it comes out, hit them early. Like, let's say you put it out at 10 in the morning, make sure it goes out right at 10 o'clock. Make sure you hit them again later in the day. There are all sorts of different tools out there. Michael will probably spill a whole bunch out on the chat about. There are all sorts of tools that you can look at your analytics for Twitter. You can look at your analytics for Instagram, and it'll tell you what are the best times a day. I can tell you right now, 3 o'clock is a key time. For us, it's 3 o'clock on Wednesday. You'll always see me post my best stuff around 3 o'clock on Wednesday because most of my activity happens then. So you know, hey, a lot of people go on around 3 o'clock. I think at 10 o'clock. Then again, I post it around 3 on that same day. Yeah, it depends on your goals. Always be testing, testing, testing. Michael is absolutely correct. Just in generalities, 10 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock in the morning, that first one goes, got a new post out there. 3 o'clock for us, I want to send a second post. Then I wait a couple of days. What is my key day? Is it Wednesday? Is it Thursday? Where is that audience at? And if you can figure that out, send another one. And that's where you can do one of those ICYMI, in case you missed it, post. ICYMI. Put that in all caps. And then you put the blog post. That works really well. Okay? How many times a day? Give it a couple. Don't go crazy. Unless you want to do a Twitter avalanche, which is something, believe it or not. I wouldn't do that for everything you do because your audience is going to disappear real quick. But if it's the occasional thing like, hey, podcast marathon announcement happens, we've got a new show, here's the lineup, I might do an avalanche for a couple of days, constantly just throwing it out there, but changing what it says over and over. It really depends on the goals. It really depends on the content you're putting out there. I hope I answered that pretty well. Okay, I'm going to go on to the next slide. And feel free to disagree with anything I say if any of you do. I love discourse. Let's see here. Next one. We did social media basics. Instagram. This is a good one. So we've only got a couple of things on here. This is actually going to be very pertinent to the pod. So we've got our 10 people. And I'm going to post something to Instagram like I did last night. So I've got my blue box post, and I put this post together, and I make it look like what you're seeing here on the screen. You want to blow this up and look at it. This is where people are going to disagree with me. Go ahead. The two things that you will do as a pod member, first of all, to be most effective, you want to try to do it within an hour of the post going up. That can be tricky. One of the guys in our pod today said, I was out last night. These things went up. I can't do it until tonight when I get home. Okay. If your pod has a rule that it has to be within an hour, you're in the wrong pod then if you can't do it within an hour. If you don't have that rule, like our pod, we try to do it immediately, really try to do it within the hour. But you know what? We're adults. We have jobs. We have lives. We get that. So you're still getting a benefit if 24 hours later you're doing it, okay? When you interact, so the thing went on, it says, hey, I just did a new blog post about Moon Knight. It tweeted from @Capes and Lunatics. I know to go, or I put it on Instagram from Capes and Lunatics. We're doing Instagram right now. I know to go to Instagram and I'll search for Capes and Lunatics. I'll see the one about Moon Knight. I know that's the one they want me to interact with. It just went up. I will like it. I will press that little heart, okay? And then I will comment. And you want to use a comment that is significant. Don't just put, yay, okay? Unless you've seen a bunch of other people putting significant comments. You want to put something like our Blue Box thing. I said, I was so honored to be on this. And then people were writing things like, it sounded great. The show was really awesome. Man, I love this show. Those are substantial comments. They're better than just, yay, or a thumbs up. Those don't have quite the effect. So you want to like and you want to comment. That's exactly what you want to do. Let me see what it says on here. We've got more Ken wrote. I'll get back to you, Ken. Give me a second here. So you want to like and you want to comment. That's exactly what you want to do. Try to do it within the hour. Now, if you look at this, the reason I put this on here, this is a really well done Instagram post. It can be overkill for some people. You don't have to do this every time. But let's say I'm doing that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. podcast, and I put a picture on here of Spider-Man, a Spider-Man pop vinyl. And I know I'm sharing that with my audience. They're into that kind of thing. And I write something like, new Spider-Man pop vinyl is out. How awesome is this? I can't wait to put it on my shelf with the others. And then look at what he did. Follow the Sacramento Shelby Squad. Now that's a group that he's in, and he put his Twitter accounts on there. Underneath that, and those are also his Instagram accounts. They all tie in. Under that, he put hashtags. You can put, I believe it's 17 hashtags. Michael, you might be able to correct me on that. It might have changed. But you put all these hashtags. Try to find really pertinent ones. One way you can find them, if you're like, I just don't even know, there's a website called #Hashtagify.me. Hashtagify.me. You type that in. You can go in, and in the search bar, type in, let's say your subject is coffee. Type in coffee. What it'll do is it'll give you how popular the word coffee is and all these variables, what other people are searching for. You may type in coffee and find out that the coffee shop gets a lot more hits. Okay. If coffee gets like one hit in the last hour and coffee shop got 7,000, then you want to go with coffee shop. If coffee got 500 and coffee shop got 7,000, put coffee in here also. Put both of them in as your hashtags, but you want to get a bunch of hashtags. What are the things people might search for that pertain to what you posted and what your subject is? Under that, he puts all the movers and shakers on Instagram. All those @ signs, he loads it up. This is one technique. Another technique is to do that same thing and just put it in the comment section, because what it does is alerts all those people that you posted something. Then a lot of them share it. They almost become a pod without knowing they're part of your pod. Okay? That is a beautiful Instagram post, I think, for my money. I don't do all those things every time. The other thing is, a lot of people, like, I know that I was talking to somebody yesterday about it. They don't like to do this much because they're like, oh my God, I got to type it in every time. Here's a pro tip. Do it once. Go back to that post. Click in the upper right-hand corner where it says edit post. Copy the whole thing. Paste it in the new one. And just make the couple of adjustments you have to make. It takes seconds. So there you go. In your pod, when somebody posts to Instagram, immediately go in, like, and do a substantial comment. Okay? Let's go back out. And I will look at questions while I get the next slide ready for us. Ken wrote, is this similar to what you're discussing? If I'm doing a podcast on how to write books and a Deadpool movie just released, it's good to use the timing to have an episode on anti-heroes. Yes, absolutely. Figure that out for your content calendar too. Like, hey, I know the Deadpool is coming out. I know I can tie into this. Here's a really cool way I can do it. So yes, Ken, that is exactly one of the ways to utilize this. And also, if you miss one, don't beat yourself up. I get that a lot too. Like, as soon as somebody misses one, they think they've failed and they just stop. Don't stop. Do it again tomorrow. All right? So the next thing I want to talk about is using a pod with Twitter. This is going to sound real similar. I'm sure you can probably guess what I'm going to say for a lot of this. Let me share it. Here we go. Actually, it's slightly different because you have a couple of options. So same thing happens. Phil posts a blog about Moon Knight. He says it in the direct message to our group. Hey, I've got a new blog post about Moon Knight. Can you share it from the Cape Lunatics Twitter account? Okay. I go to Twitter, and I've got two samples here of what you can do. First thing you want to do is you want to like it. Obviously, hit that little heart. Second thing you want to do is either just retweet. So you know it has the two arrows like this. You click on that, and it retweets. A lot of people don't realize this. There's actually two options in there. Second option is quote tweet. So if you look at this first slide, or the first part of the slide, that is a well-written tweet. It's got 2 hashtags, 3 hashtags. Ooh, don't do more than 3. It's got 3 hashtags, and it has @ to Gene Ha, who is the person this is about. You don't always have to have all of that, but in this case, hey, if there's something I'm tweeting about that's pertinent to somebody else or some property that has a Twitter account, throw them on there at that point. So I've got this nice little thing I've written. I've got the 3 hashtags that I wanted to do for this tweet. Don't load it up with 17 like you can on Instagram. And then I have it going to Gene Ha. When Gene saw this, what did he do? He immediately liked it and retweeted it. That would be where you would retweet. He just clicked on that, retweet, boom, it goes out to his followers. Now, as a pod, there is a more powerful tool for you. That is quote tweet. So if you click on that, it says quote tweet. Now you can add a comment. And in that comment, you can add more people. You can add hashtags. You don't have to, but tweets are more powerful in the algorithm if they have a quote tweet rather than a retweet. The other thing that does, let's say you're doing a big event. Let's say we're doing a Twitter party. We're all watching Dancing with the Stars. I've never watched it, but we're all watching that. And we say, you know what, we're having a Twitter party. All of us in our pod are going to be on there, and some of our friends, and blah, blah, blah. And we're tweeting it out, and we're trying to make this a thing, okay? If you start quote tweeting each other, and you're using the same hashtag, let's say it's hashtag Dancing with the Stars or hashtag Rainbow Pod. If you get enough activity, enough quote tweets, enough retweets, but especially quote tweets and enough likes, it can trend. I was in a group that actually made a finale of a show that was not a popular show, trend, because for an hour, we were all on there tweeting and quote tweeting each other, and boom, it went up Twitter's algorithm. It's not easy. It's not something you could just do every time, but that is a way to make it work. And the quote tweet is very powerful for communicating with your audience, telling your audience, hey, I like what was said here, and I'm going to add to it. Now your follower is even more engaged in what your pod is saying. And then finally, I put lists on here. I have a friend that uses lists for everything. She absolutely adores lists. Okay. I'm not real good with them. I like them. I'm just not really good with them. So when you do a list, like for coffee, you find all the movers and shakers, add the list on Twitter. Now you have a master list of everybody that you want to make sure you're tagging in things. That's not really a pod thing. That's more of a you using your Twitter properly, because you can reach the people you want to reach really effectively. I'm not good with that because, I don't know, I stumble through it every time and I make these lists and I forget about them. That's me. Nobody's perfect, right? You're like, yeah, right. You're definitely not. Okay, so did we get more questions on here? What is a good way to interact? Okay, here we go. Can't stop, won't stop. Yes. What's a good way to interact with possible podcast guests on Twitter? Best way to ask them for an interview? Would it help or hurt to have multiple people from the pod tweet them? It depends. I don't have a solid answer for that. So first of all, what's a good way to interact with them? Compliment them and tag them. So I got a Doug Jones interview the very first time by saying, oh my gosh, Doug Jones is in this episode. I'm a huge fan. And tagged him and got a private message back from Doug in like 2 seconds. First, he did it on Twitter like, oh, so nice. Then he wrote me a private message and said, hey, would you want me to be on sometime? Yeah. That's one way. Michael has a great one here. It says, I've done video at messages. I actually get these. I get the waves from you pretty often, Michael, which you're trying to get my attention, want to see if we've got anything to say. I've had Gary V, Lewis Hose respond directly either by retweet or video replay. That is another way. And what you want to do is you compliment them, you make that reach out, and then ask for the interview. If you just automatically tweet it, a lot of them are either going to ignore it or they're going to say, talk to my agent. If you get that conversation going and they're contacting with you on Twitter or on Instagram, that is a great way for them to say, hey, you know what? I'd love to do this. I'll let my agent know. Here's who you contact to set it up. Or like Todd, when Todd Stashwick was on, he was like, yeah, cool. I'd love to be on Before the Bat. We didn't have to write anybody. We went to Todd. So that's another way of doing it. Video messages are great. Just make them short. Don't talk their ear off. Be pointed when you have something to say to them. Best way to ask them for the interview is ask. Compliment them and ask. Would it hurt or help to have multiple people? Man, if you're inundating them, it's going to hurt. If I get a tweet from League of Geeks, then Lil's like, I mean, I know this isn't a good example because he just calls me, but let's say they wanted me on. And he sends me a tweet. He's like, hey, we'd love to have you on as a guest. And then in the next hour, I get it from each of the different co-hosts. I'm going to be like, why are they so desperate? Like, I don't know. It just seems like it could be a bit much, be a little off-putting. If I get it from a Lil, and then maybe I get another one later that's like, hey, man, I sent a tweet. Are you interested? Still waiting back. I'd love to talk to you. I'm probably going to respond because it's like, oh, yeah, I'm kind of a jerk. I didn't respond. You know what I mean? So there's my answer for that. Gary Vee is awesome to follow, by the way. Once in a while, wacky ideas. Hey, guess what? I have wacky ideas too. I think he's really inspirational. He's an awesome dude. Okay, so on the screen, I have other ideas. Podcasts, blog, videos, artwork, books, shows. Basically, what I'm saying is if you make content of any kind, if you're a social media guy and you're trying to make a name in social media, you're trying to sell webinars, you're trying to sell your artwork that's on DeviantArt, you write books, you're trying to sell those, anything. Whether you're selling or not, you just want to get it in front of people so they're aware. Get in a pod of like-minded people that are targeting the same thing. Now, I want to touch on podcasts and blogs and videos real quickly because I had a run-in this week. My fault. I'm in a bunch of different podcast groups, and they don't know who I am or anything. They don't know what I do. And I once in a while will respond to stuff and post stuff, but I don't know. There's a lot of egos going on in some of these groups where I'm like, dude, you put out 20 shows and you have 100 listens and you think you know everything. Yeah, you may know stuff and I'm willing to listen to it. I'm not going to slam you, but don't slam me and tell me that you know more. So I posted about this idea of these pods on one of them, and I was very open about it. And I had 2 sentences in there where I talked about if you're a podcaster or a blogger, when you put something new out, what your pod can do that's helpful is, let's say I put out a new episode of New Media Lab. I go to my pod and I say, a new episode just posted. It's on iTunes. What I suggested is go to iTunes, like the episode. If you're on some of these platforms, you can put a comment like, hey, I really dug the episode. Okay. The people in my pod are people I like. I like the content they do. Okay. So I'm safe in doing that. And by doing that, it helps raise me up in iTunes algorithm or Spotify's algorithm or whoever's, right? I'm not buying reviews. I'm going to the people that I know support me, and I'm asking them to do this. I will do it for them. They do it for me. I'm not taking 100 people. I'm taking 10, okay? So this is what I posted in there, and all I got back from these podcasters was, that's like buying things. You should put out good content, blah, blah, blah. Okay, bottom line is they're not thinking like marketers. They're thinking like, I'm a super genius at content. None of us are. And even if we are, we still should use some marketing tools to make things go. They don't put out Black Panther and not advertise it and not tell you it's there. They want you to retweet it and quote tweet it and go to their thing and review it, even though it's the biggest movie out right now, because they're using marketing. So that's what I'm saying here. If you've got a play that's going up, use your pod to boost it up. Use your pod to tell people you've got new artwork, or even just to say, hey, I've got a DeviantArt page. Can you share this? You no longer have to keep putting, could you please retweet to everybody? You've got a pod that's doing it, and they're retweeting stuff for you. So that was that whole point. I know I ran it a little bit there, but man, that made me crazy this week because it's like, come on, man. Let's all promote each other. Let's help each other. Okay, we're coming in for a landing here pretty soon. So, questions? Got anything? Ken had to leave us. We've got MyMy648 saying hi. Hi, MyMy648. If that is the MyMy that I know, I hope you watch this, and I hope you get all sorts of ideas, because he's a fine young man that's really creative and a lot of fun. I have a feeling it's him. And yeah, man, he's going to own the world just by doing this stuff. So does the pod thing make sense? Does what I'm saying make sense to you? Do you know how to find other people? That's a big question. Actually, I'm going to go back. I'm going to touch on that again. So let's say it's that American Horror Story podcast, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to put a pod together. Well, I'm going to look at what are the influential podcasts about American Horror Story. Hopefully, I have some kind of relationship with them, and that's usually what happens. I know a lot of the other podcasters. I will reach out to them and say, here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm suggesting. I want to put a pod together that does this. Are you in? They're either going to say yes or no. Okay? Hopefully, yes. I might look and say, okay, these guys are all American Horror Story, but I want to reach another segment. I want to reach horror fans. That's a huge segment. So now I look and see, is there anybody that follows me, anybody that I really respect that's in those arenas, that's in horror, that might be a good fit? I'm going to reach out to them. Just don't go crazy. Don't send out 100 of these, because, man, you're going to go over 20. You're going to go over 30, and you're going to go, oh, man, how many of these posts do I have to do in a day? And you're going to tick them off. You're going to tick yourself off. Keep it tight. Keep it a tight group. Peers work, subject, demographic, definitely you want to look at and go to those people and give it the ask. Phil, you asked, how do you get the guest? It's the exact same thing. Give the ask. How did we build a network? People would post on our Facebook page, and they'd say, Charlie S. was writing on there about Marvel. We'd write things. We'd put on a podcast. He'd write something on there like, here's the blah, blah, blah about Marvel. Here's the latest thing, blah, blah. And I finally wrote to him and said, can we talk on the phone? We got on the phone, and I said, I want you to do a blog. You're really good. And once the blog is up, I want you to get on a podcast. And he's like, oh, I've never done that. I gave him the ask. Now he's on like 20 podcasts, and he's super prolific, and he's incredible at it because I gave the ask. He became part of my podcast pod, not the social media part, but the pod we built, which is the network we built. When people ask about networks, and they always think, oh, you're trying to build something so you can make money off this and off that. Hey, we're not making money. I wish we were. But what we're doing is we are, by having a network, putting our ideas out there and their ideas out there and trying to reach a similar audience. I know that got a little nuts. Okay, more questions. I think I answered that pretty well. Anything else? Anything else? We got a few more minutes here. I will go to that last slide. Did I go to? Boom. Where to find me. So here you go. These are the ways you can reach me. Those of you that didn't see the top, here you go. You can tweet me at @Southgate. I also have the company Twitter, which is @SMGPods. You can get me on Instagram at Rob Southgate. I'm also on a number of other ones, but that's the one I use in my pod. Facebook, Southgate Media Group, or Pod People. Pod People is really just a place where we can connect, where people can find other people that want to be in a pod. I'm helping a group right now that they are independent writers, and some of them do podcasting. And I'm like, you guys should be a pod, because they've all said it to me privately. Well, 2 of them found it through Pod People. There you go. If you want to be in that group, just let me know. Just go on and request to be in the group. It's a private group, because I don't want it just getting flooded with trolls and all sorts of stuff. We want it to be people getting in there, connecting, and then we'll start sharing stuff like about a content calendar, or about types of ideas of things you can do as a group to promote you. I put my Fiverr on here, so I'll go to that last slide and show you. Oh, I don't have it on here. I must have deleted it. I have a Fiverr page. It's under Rob Southgate. So those of you watching that want more time with me, You want to have a private session where we go into a lot more depth. I mean, I barely skimmed the surface here. I did 3 hours at Gen Con, and I packed them so full, much more information than this. And I left there and went, oh my gosh, I still have 4 hours of stuff that I could stand in the hallway and spew without even taking a breath. You want that. You want to talk about your specific project or just get information about social media or podcasting or any of this. You can find me on Fiverr. I have a Fiverr under Rob Southgate. Go to any of the podcast ones, like how to set up a podcast or let me review your podcast. And under there is one where you can get a 1 hour consultation. Through my website, I charge $150 for that. On Fiverr, I've got it down for $75 for an hour. If you're like, I want a half hour, make a custom job for a half hour, do it for $40. I'm happy to do that with you. I know people are like, well, you're making money off that. Yeah, people get paid to consult. I give a super big discount, but I still have to eat. I still got to pay for all that Blue Box coffee, which Chris gives me. Let's see. iTunes. I put down New Media Lab with Robert Southgate because that's the more businessy one that we have. But we have 100 different shows on there. And I'm on, I don't know, 30 shows, something like that. You can find me on all sorts of them. But for now, go to iTunes, look up New Media Lab with Robert Southgate, and you'll get this type of information. I just give it away on there. And mainly what I'm doing is interviewing people that give unbelievable advice. It's awesome. The website is southgatemediagroup.com. I have my podcast school on there, which is called Mic Drop. That's something that you got to be local for. I teach kids and adults. I also have my Fiverr on there. I have the whole company on there. So if there's anyone from the company you're interested in reaching out to, that's the place to do it. And all the webinars, because I've got webinars starting, really cool ones. I've got one all about achieving your goals and your dreams that I'm working on that is going to be amazing. I wish somebody had shown me that 30 years ago. And then finally, you can always reach out to me at email, southgatemediagroup@gmail.com, goes directly to me. I know that Michael's probably going to say, hey man, you should put a Rob at Southgate Media Group. I have one. I forgot how to access it. I don't use it. So southgatemediagroup@gmail.com goes right to me. Okay, more comments. Jamie Burns says hello. Hey, Jamie. Jamie's an awesome podcaster. He's another one. He was a fan of one of the shows, loved the Star Wars stuff. Host was changing. We reached out to him, and we made that ask. And he's amazing. They just recorded episode 28 of Radio Free Endor. Dude, it's a great show, and he does incredible stuff. I want to get him in a pod doing this kind of thing. I would love it if he was in a Star Wars pod with like some of the big Star Wars shows, the people that we know. Make a little pod. You guys would see your numbers explode, not just Radio Lab or Radio Free Endor, but the other ones too. And then Michael, I'm going to read this one because, dude, big compliment. I know consultants that make $2,500 an hour. That's a great deal, especially an expert like Rob. Michael, I'll cut you a deal. $2,400 to you, Michael Copeland. No, I'm kidding. $75 on Fiverr. I said $40 for a half hour if you want to do a custom thing. Or if you really don't want to use Fiverr, because some people hate that, go to the website, do it for $150. I'll give you more than an hour if you do that. And then Michael says we should talk. I think every conversation we have ends with we should talk more, man. So yes, Michael, we should talk. That's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me on this free webinar. Give me feedback. Give me ideas. Reach out to me. You got questions. What I'm going to do is leave this up for 1 week. Then I'm going to pull it down and I'm going to retool so that questions, things I may have missed, other ideas. I want to do something where I share what's happening in my pod. In fact, I'm going to give you one more thing about my pod. So we've only done a couple of posts. The first post I did, I reached out to the pod. I said, hey, can you guys retweet this tweet? It was a tweet. And it was one that was innocuous. I wasn't selling anything. I was just thanking somebody for being on my show, right? Had a picture. Always have a picture. Normally, when I tweet one of these, it gets about 125 interactions. That's not a lot. Every once in a while, you get this nice big one, but like 125. I do this. Phil is in my pod. He retweets it. Another guy that's not in my pod saw the retweet, did a quote tweet, and responded to it. And then 2 more people that I don't know retweeted it and liked it. Just they weren't following me. It just happened. I'm like, okay, sweet. That in the first hour, the interactions was over 700 interactions. Normally I do like 125. Is that a lot? Heck yeah, because now I'm going to, if I'm averaging 750 and all of a sudden I get 7,000 interactions because of that, it's going to make a huge difference. You like that big, huge? I threw that out there for you. More webinars later on. Yeah, man. We're going to do one all about podcasting. We're going to do another one of these. I'm doing that one about following your dreams. Martha's going to do one about dealing with food allergies. She is unbelievable. Martha's my wife, for those of you that don't know. Please keep sharing this with people. Keep recommending it. If you know anyone that wants to know anything about this, send them my way. And if you want to, help the cause, go to Fiverr. It's one great way to do it. Or you can just go and donate on our website. There's a donate button. You can either do PayPal or donate directly. Either way is awesome. But that's it, guys. Thank you again so much. I hope to see all you guys in pods. Have a great, great day.